All right, so um, first, just wanted to, so what I planned to do today was go through like WorldCat entities, some of the different things you can see and do there, because um, this particular community of practice, you don't necessarily have to be a member of or subscribe to Meridian. Meridian's the tool where you can edit data, but really anyone's able to use the WorldCat entities data and could have a vested interest in what that, you know, what the expectation is, what that looks like, things like that. So then this particular community of practice can, advocate for um, best practices, and then I can taking my, I don't know, OCLC hat off, um, advocate for, if there are changes that you would be looking for in the UI or options available, things like that. Um, it's great to hear from folks who are interested in using the tool and the data, um, and how we can help. I guess when I say we, I put my OCLC hat back on. All right, so I was going to go through WorldCat entities and then walk through Meridian a little bit and what that looks like, just so you can see how some of these things are editable. Um, and let me know in the chat if there's something else that you expected to get out of this. Again, if you've come in and realize, oh, actually, I already know all of this stuff. The session isn't for me. That's fine. Feel free to hang out or drop as you need. Um, but I'll just go right into things. All right. So, WorldCat Entities has um, a variety of entity types that it includes, people, organizations, places, events, and then works. Works right now, um, it's meant to be aligned with like the bib frame concept of a work. So it's sort of um, well, I'm not going to get into the whole WEMI structure, but basically it's a little bit more of um, I think expression level type information. But the point of what I want to say about works is that we've gotten feedback, we've done analysis, and there are some things that we need to do to improve them. So working with works has well, it is not the focus of this group or EMCO. And as you're thinking about entities, the best ones to, I think, look at, use as examples are people, places, things like that. So within WorldCat entities, we have all of that. And then for the EMCO program itself, we're doing person, organization, and maybe maybe families. I can't remember, but that um, kind of smaller subset of entities. So on the site, and I'm like not logged in at all, you can go to any entity. We have a super basic search that has some different facets here. We can see that there are two people. I'll show you a little bit more about that in a second. But you can check out this particular person, see some basic information. Um, that information, when we move into the world of entities, and if folks were at the meeting just this past when we started talking a little bit about labels and languages. The primary key essentially is this identifier, but this doesn't look good as like, the bluest eye by id.oclc.org, blah, 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 blah. So then we have all these labels, and these are much more dynamic than um, what you would expect in a name authority file. Um, Dynamic in that, um, names names can be changed, descriptions can be changed a little bit more readily. You can see here that we have this label in a variety of languages. Now it looks the same. It is the same in a number in Latin script, but as we start to get to Arabic script, um, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Bengali we have here, you can see that we can represent it in all of these different scripts. And this is kind of where the name authority file we've started and bibliographic records adding some more provenance about a particular string language. This kind of that's sort of I feel like a kind of a middle in between um, kind of solution between sort of authority control and entity management. Um, and using that data on the web. So you can see that here we have all these descriptions in different languages. We see sometimes that we have the label in a language, we don't have a description. What's required here is one label and one description in a given language. Aliases can be other names. All of this is searched when you search in the search bar up here. So if I searched for, you know, this. Now let's make sure this works. But if I search, oh, press the wrong button. We can see that it pulls up Toni Morrison here. So all of these are searchable. We see these different aliases here. We could search by this and kind of see this preferred label. So that's the key information section. And then just as we go, we'll see other information about this person. Again, when you're in a view mode, you can click on expand entry. It doesn't give you particular additional information when you're not logged in. Here we have other identifiers. These are not linked data identifiers. So I'll show you here in just a second. So we can see we have some relationships here. Now, we have all this data. From this view here, we can query this. So if you're a person on the data side of things, you can take this URI, more likely in a script sense or working with APIs, and you can dereference it and get some basic information like a date of birth, so dates associated with the person, and then all of those labels and descriptions. Um, now this has a lot to do with the increased bot traffic, various things like that. When you sign in, I would recommend doing that either with you can do a WorldCat.org account if you don't have a WorldShare account, but you can also just use your WorldShare account. So if you have, um, I'll use my WorldCat.org account first. But if you are logging into Record Manager or the Community Center, that's a WorldShare account. So you can use that to sign into this. And I'm actually, as I mentioned, gonna log in with my WorldCat.org account so you can see what this looks like. So once you log in, you're going to see this, and this is, again, this is free. You don't have to be a subscriber to Meridian. This is free. You can see this references section. And so this gives you some information about where this particular, you could call it like a claim or a property value, where this value came from. And just so you notice this, some of these, these blocks down here have these arrows. So where right here, it could look like, let's see what's on the next page. If you're just here, you could say, oh, I know there's a German National Library DNB identifier. I don't see it. These things we found are a little out of the way, but you can page through the values there. So you can see the references section. I just showed you another section. So these linked data identifiers are here, as well as all of these linked names or related entities that are clickable. And then on the machine side of things, I can show you in a second, but I'll do this first. The data that you would get includes birth date, death date, some of all of those classic things. But it would also include once you're using like a WorldShare account, like with a API key. Oh, something is not cooperating. When I download this, it should give me a couple more of these relationships, but I have a feeling that it doesn't know that I downloaded a new file, so we'll deal with that a little bit later. There's also a history table, so we can see here when certain things were changed. So I know Jeff Mixter, my colleague, has changed all kinds of things about his entity, and so you can see that reflected in the history here. Removed this occupation, added this one, replaced a description, added an identifier, all that kind of stuff. And it's linked to the um, institution at the institution level. So you can see this is, his Dublin support. It's all Jeff. Okay, so that's the basics of WorldCat entities data. Oh, you know what? This is a good time to show you the APIs quickly. Let's go to Postman real quick. There's some documentation on this, and I can put it into the chat. Maybe I'll just send it out to everybody of how to access. So if you take one of these IDs for a given entity and append JSON LD, we saw that you get that basic information. And then you also saw me say, oh, I should really be getting more data back with this. I wasn't quite sure what was going on. If you have this set up with a WorldShare ID or account, now this would be something that you would log into the developer network, and then you request a key, also free. Then when you hit send or complete the request, you can see that you get like some of these relationships back too. So you could make, this is in the case that maybe you were building something locally that you wanted to incorporate this data. This is how you could pull that back. Was there something else I was going to say about this? I don't think so. And then Meridian subscribers have ways to search and view the data as well through the API. Oh, I wanted to mention that if you don't have a WorldShare account, like, I don't know, perhaps there's I think there's some subscription we have that you actually don't sign in through WorldShare. If you don't have that, you can let us know and we can create something for you so that you can access this. So that is still free, meant to be freely available for you to be able to query this data or get the data for a particular entity. Okay, back to the website. Okay, so that is the super basic overview. I guess another part of the overview I want to give is the person and organization entities that you'll see in here are initially seeded, 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 or the starting data set was pulled from VIAF. And so just to keep that in mind as you might be searching for an entity that you're like, why doesn't this exist? If it exists, well, if it existed in VIAF when we initially did this a few years ago now, it should be in here. We did have some challenges around some clusters. So we would want to you know, try to help with duplicates or try to reduce duplicates by not bringing some things in. Or we all know that there's some challenges with VOF duplicates, things like that. I mean, we're all very familiar with all duplicates, I think. Um, but basically, you might see some duplicates in WorldCat entities as well. To that end, let me show you one thing here. So when we saw Toni Morrison and we see, oh, it says there are two people. This probably the same person. Um, let's see if I went to this Toni Morrison. So the Toni Morrison we were on was this one. Let's say I went to this one. We can see here that there's this banner. OCLC has been notified. This entity is potentially a duplicate of another entity, and this is the one that we would want. So we do have places in here for duplicate, kind of to notify folks that we're reviewing a potential duplicate. And then we have internal like QC processes to resolve those duplicates. I think that's all I want to cover just on like regular WorldCat entities stuff. Oh, I lied. I want to also show you on OCLC help. If you go to metadata services and then there's WorldCat entities here at the bottom and the WorldCat ontology guidelines and standards. There's also Meridian for Meridian users. These have some basic kind of help um, pieces to it. So I'll mention the ontology here in just a second, maybe when we start to go edit things. Um, yeah, that's when I'll do it. Okay, so that's WorldCat entities generally. Questions yet? Okay, so you can feel free to keep typing them, but I'm going to forge ahead here. And now I will sign in as a Meridian user. Meridian users can create and edit data along with a few other things. So I'm going to sign in with my institution. Um, here. Okay. And we see a few different sections here. So we see that this logo, let me check this chat here. The people entities come from name authority records, or can they be created directly, not in MARC, but in RDF? So you can maybe follow up if I'm not answering the question, but um, these entities, so yeah, I skipped one other important data source. So they were originally from the data was sourced from VOF, which is based on name authority records. And so we did some mapping into the WorldCat ontology, which is the structure of data that all of this entity data is in. We also do have a process that we kicked off last year that as name authority records are created in Library of Congress, it will create like a short entry in Meridian so that Meridian users that may need to use that entity or expand upon it are able to do that. So that's one kind of data set and data flow. But the primary mechanism by which entities continuously get added is right through Meridian, which are not name authorities. That is kind of truly like an entity, an RDF representation. I have been showing it as JSON LD, but we have the building blocks in place that it could be represented in um, kind of any RDF serialization. So let me know if that answers
Ye-
any, all, none of your
ye-
question.
Yes, it answered my question. Just curious. So in the Wikidata, other than the those elements or those kind of relate to the like RDF statement about the concept of the person. Down below, there's a matching identifiers, like let each Q number connect with VF, with NAR, with other database over here. Oh, okay, got it. So whoever doing the creation or editing, they can manually establish the connection between Meridian, this entity, with identifier in other database. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was um, yes and. These again sourced from VOF had a lot of identifiers that came along with it in VOF. And um, so now new entities, if they do have a VOF ID, we are starting a process that will update death dates and identifiers. So let's say that let's say this person is in VOF. Toni Morrison is in VOF. So what we're going to do as VOF is continue to be updated is if on the VOF kind of cluster record, there is an additional, let's say, I don't know, tomorrow there's like a new registry with lots of different IDs, or maybe someone has just added the ISNI into a record where it finally shows up in VOF. That will flow into WorldCat entities. There's very limited, like I would say, synchronization of data. Our main overwrite things. So it's limited in that we have that NAR process that creates them. I see my connection is unstable. I hope that I'm not totally blurry, but that's okay. Um, we have that process that brings those NARs in if they are not already existing, and VOF that does a couple of additive changes in that it adds a death date and additional identifiers. So that's the other way, in addition to the manual adding, is we do have a process if there's a VOF for a particular person, we add them in that way. But as I've heard from a number of folks that are um, kind of using these tools, often the people are sort of falling outside of the scope of VOF, and so that might be a case where people are adding like an ORCID or another identifier that by hand manually. Good question. Okay, so when we logged into Meridian, we saw that this logo changed. We see a create button. We see a few other things here. We see an edit tab. There's an actions menu, and then there's this quality score. So a couple of things here. This is the mechanism, this request to delete entity. This is the mechanism through which a Meridian user can kind of flag something as a duplicate or something that kind of needs to be removed. So from this request to delete entity, I'm in the production environment, so I'm not going to do this. But you would add in the URI of the keeper, essentially. Or if it's a remove request, you could add it here. Now have gotten limited, but have gotten some takedown requests, and we're happy to do that. We have ways for in those cases. Um, we'll see stuff in the history table that might have links. Like here's an example. Let's see if he has a link. So with a privacy request like that, let's say this particular person wanted to be removed from the database, and that's something that you found out, passed along uh, to us, to OCLC. What will happen if this person is removed is this becomes redacted. So I mentioned that just in that we've been thinking about privacy a lot and ways that we can help um, folks, metadata creators, manage, balance privacy with entity creation. So that's kind of one of the ways that we're doing that with that particular kind of use case. Um, there is kind of a score here that it shows or gives a little bit of a picture of how much data is available. Um, let's go back to Toni Morrison's. It's not a pass or fail grade. It's kind of just it's an assessment of data. Um, so Toni Morrison has a 56, and I think has a really great entity. We can see here that we consider it moderately complete and moderately disambiguated. Here's some suggestions of what we might add in order to um, contribute to this score. The goal of that is to get information that can help disambiguate this person. So in different lookups that we have for WorldCat entities, it's helpful to have a description or some dates or places of, related places so that you can tell that this Toni Morrison is not the Toni Morrison in your PhD class graduating, tomorrow. Um, so that's the kind of stuff that we're looking at in that. Thinking about, I'll mention a couple of other privacy things that we were thinking about as we thought about the ontology, just as we go. Okay, so from here you can create an entity, and so this is uh, kind of as far one of the areas that we've gotten in our conversation so far in EMCO around like required recommended properties or guidance around entering that data. So what you would do is, you know, you can create a new entity, the entity type you would select. We bundle um, person, family, organization, or just an agent if, it's Clifford the big red dog under agent. So let's say this is a person. I also want to show you that we do have some duplicate detection as well. So you would enter a description, and this is something we've gotten feedback around. Uh, what could be included in this, what is expected, what are some examples. And I think that'll probably be some further conversation in the group. But this is something that would say like a metadata librarian and product manager from Wisconsin or something like that. And that would be helpful to disambiguate me potentially from the other Ann Washington who also works in data, semantic data. Um, but I want to show you here this duplicate. I put in Ann Washington and I say I'm a duplicate. What the system will do is say, hey, does anything else have this label in any language? So it is checking across existing values in given languages that are in that pref label or the alt label, kind of when I was showing that example of being able to search by different languages, it's doing that same search to see if there's something similar. And oh, look, okay, actually, there's already an existing Ann Washington. I'm just going to go ahead and edit it or just not do anything at all. So this is another sort of quality measure that we have in place, just so y'all know, even if you're not Meridian subscribers, you understand that there's a couple of different things that we have to try to help with duplicates, community stewardship of this. So when we go to edit mode, you'll see this is where you could add labels in another language that doesn't already exist. So if I had um, the, Tunisian Arabic in Arabic script label, I could add that here along with the description. Um, there are this language list is pulling from the BCP 47 list. And that is an extensible list. So if we don't have representation for a language that you might need to use, that's something that um, we can fix over on the OCLC side. The significant dates section. So within each section are these properties. So right now we have date of birth, date of death, active start, active end date. This is where I wanted to show you on the support site. Those properties are from the WorldCat ontology. The WorldCat ontology was designed to be kind of a library, archive, museum, general purpose ontology or set of properties to describe people, places, works, things like that for connection and discovery. So you might not see the depth of something that is designed for like exhaustive, person information, pant size, I don't know, hair color, things like that. But you will see the things that are helpful to connect people to other people or resources. Where did this person go to school? What is their occupation or field of activity? So this WorldCat Ontology Guidelines and Standards page is really useful. The primer has some of the like additional context that I just described, um, as well as some other notes that I think are helpful and important. And then we have the actual individual properties listed under a given entity type. So this could be helpful for, I had a question, somebody had a question at one point about the given name. And the question was, what should I put in the given name or the surname? And, able to go here and say all elements of the person's name, not including the surname. Cool, great. So we'll likely need to kind of expand upon these, add some notes, and it will be helpful throughout the conversations that we have in EMCO to see where to kind of like target and prioritize those efforts. Okay, yes, I was on this one. So when you see these properties in this drop down, know that this WorldCat ontology is the source and where you can find more information. This is one that I wanted to mention just again about the privacy considerations. So, you know, I have had the experience that somebody doesn't want their actual full date of birth or even their birth year, but maybe an active date of when they started publishing is acceptable. So you could do an active start date. It could be a single date or a range. The dates could be at any specificity. So this could, be, I don't actually know the answer, but, you know, 1980 at this level of specificity. And then we have a section for a reference URL. So if you got this from a particular area, again, this is kind of providing some provenance or reference for how, where and how you got this information. So each section kind of goes in turn, and the survey that Jill and folks put together that goes through these different properties to say, is it required? Is it recommended? Do I have other thoughts about it? Questions, things like that. That's going through each of these sections and then each of the properties in this section. Um, Another sort of entry piece that will be helpful to know is for some things like an example is field of activity. Uh, as in the OCLC, me, um, the app starts with fast topics. So when we had field of activity, let's just say like ornithology, we have fast as the topic. Now this is helpful because then it creates this common point of description or connection across different people and different like works, say works that are about ornithology, people that study ornithology and are from X institution or lived in this particular area, were born between these dates. That's the kind of reasoning behind why FAST is used. And FAST doesn't have everything. It's very limited. Um, we know that. So if there's, I don't know, I don't know what a, let's just say, um, you know, Southern American bird calls or something that isn't in fast, you can still enter this in as text. And then what on the OCLC side we plan to do is sort of continually assess um, what types of values are we seeing in this? Is this something that we should make? Is there a way we could expand um, the lookup for this? And that's again where if this group has some recommendations, we're open to hearing those too. But I wanted to mention that you can select either you know, controlled value like this, which then links it to fast, or um, whatever I just mentioned. This is actually probably a thing. Okay, birds. It wants me to use bird songs. But you could put in the text. Oh, okay, I've confused it because I've added too many things. And we can cancel that. Okay. Oh, but then there are these different characteristics here. Award received, field of activity, genre of activity. This is relevant, I think, in like for literary or artists. That could be a helpful um, descriptor. Language they're related to in some way. Occupation. So yeah, okay. And then we have names, given name, surname. Here, I'll show you kind of honorifics. Linked data identifiers. So that's anything that would go out to like a dereferenceable URI, meaning that at the end of this URI, I can do I will get data. Um, so they could have an associated web page, but the idea is at the end of this is a machine readable, readily available URI. And then other identifiers are also very important. Not everything is available as a linked data system, which is fine. But we also have these IDs. And then when it comes to relationships, we have um, various relationships here, sibling, spouse, related person, pseudonym, things like that. Um, Related places, it can be as specific or kind of general as needed. And then related works, the I won't get too into it, but I guess I will. Um, these can be added, if there's a work that this person was a contributor to or an author of, that relationship lives on the work level, but can also be added here from the person entity. Um, and we have our new images section, which allows you to add a IIIF manifest URL that you could pull in a lot of times from a digital collection, museum, digital library to provide an image. All right, so that was a super quick overview. So then how does this relate into to EMCO? As I had mentioned, what we're doing now is given what we know about what's available in this work form, what opinions, thoughts, ideas, feedback does this group have around what would be kind of helpful to users. So we know for NACO there are very specific rules about what's required, what's recommended, things like that. OCLC is looking, wants these to be informed by the community. And so EMCO is a helpful place to um, be able to contribute to that work. So it is kind of going through these different sections in that Google form that Jill put together. And so you don't need to be logged in to see that. I think Toni Morrison is the real Toni Morrison, not well, I'm on this one. Um, this entity has a lot of those properties, but unless you're a Meridian subscriber logged in, you won't be able to like see all of the properties on every entity, but Jill has listed them out. Let me see if I can find the document in another window here. Up, 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 up. Probably. Oh, hey, check it out. Oh, let me go to this. Okay, well, it's a little odd, but let's see if this lets me do this. Okay, so we can see here um, for the person properties, the field is type. Right now, type is in key information and it's required. Do you have questions or comments? Your comment could be like, seems good to me. Or you could leave a blank and it's okay. You don't have to say anything about it. Um, the preferred label is in key information and it's required. Um, the form also includes the definition, specifies the type of entity, label value in a given language, the description, statement which provides a basic explanation, is in the key information section. So you could say it would be helpful to have more examples of these. Then we get into uh, in the key information section, alias. Do you think that it should be required? Should it be required if available? Is it preferred? Is it optional? No comment. So that's kind of what this is going through. And then, oh wait, you're not seeing what I'm seeing, are you? No, I'm not in. I'm sorry. I was doing a lot of pointing and you weren't seeing what I was seeing. But I think you probably got the gist here. This is where I was typing in like, you know, it would be helpful to have more examples. So for some of these, you'll be able to find entities. Like if you aren't a Meridian, if you're using WorldCat entities, uh, some of these you'll be able to find examples to see what it looks like. Like we saw that Toni Morrison has date of birth, date of death. We saw Toni Morrison had some influence by relationships, things like that. But we didn't see an active start date. Active start date is there. It's just not on probably most entities have birth and death dates. Active start date is something that I think a user would have added at this point, kind of in the data set. So you might not be able to find that in the um, just by kind of like randomly searching. So that's how this form is set up for y'all to give feedback. Okay, so I was talking the entire time. What questions do folks have? Comments? Hopefully, this was helpful just to give you some of the basics of what we were up to. Okay. Okay, good. We got some other questions here. So one of the questions, similar to Wikidata, you rely on the description statement rather than the label to distinguish names. Is this understanding correct? Yes. So like we would not put, um, Toni Morrison. We wouldn't put that in the label. That disambiguating information, let me see here, discard changes, would be added in the description and in these other associated properties. I want to show you what that looks like when you're actually doing like a search. So I I mentioned we were in, I think, field of activity. We were looking at fast. For these relationships between people and places, this is searching other WorldCat entities. So we're just going to ignore that this is child, or maybe we'll do influenced by. Um, So you can see here that as you're looking it up, you can see the description there. And so when there is any kind of lookup, that description right now is what we're using. And we know that this is an incomplete, um, you know, not everything is going to have a description. For example, we've got this organization and that does not have a description. So that's where this becomes challenging. And hey, could we maybe pull in some other data points to provide that context that's helpful? Um, okay, for the score, saw some recommendations for missing areas to help improve. Does the system care about the quality of the data or just the number of data? So we don't check to see if data is accurate. This is more of a recommendation for, let's say you've got something that's, uh, you know that this is a faculty member from the University of Georgia. That could be all that you know, and that's fine. But let's just say, hey, I've put in their name, I put in their relationship to University of Georgia, and then let's say this suggestion gave you like, oh, a place of residence or resident. This is pretty like stupid, by the way. This is just recommended by the computer that says, hey, these are missing fields that could help. Um, but let's say you had again that faculty from University of Georgia. You could put related place, Georgia, and that's given you kind of, oh, okay, there's another sort of disambiguation point or data point that could be helpful. Um, any condition requirement to add a name entity? No. So the condition to add an entity is that it is important to your workflow. So if you are doing uh, a set of, mm, I don't know, architectural drawings by, the firm that used to be in the office right next to, I'm just using academic library examples. That's probably, let's say you were in an art museum and there's an architecture office next door. It's like, oh, well, we have all of their drawings and let's add the names for the architects. They don't have to have published even the blueprints don't have to be, online or anything. if it's important to your workflow, and let's say there's also a historical society down the street that has the architect's father's journals or something like that, it's helpful to have even those architects' names in there as linked data to make that connection. So that's the um, kind of requirement. Um, the ontology being used in the relationship elements. Predicate properties. Oh, those are coming from primarily our own ontology. The ones that are not coming from our own ontology are like RDF type and SCOS pref label, SCOS alt label, I think that comes from there. Um, at this WorldCat ontology guidelines and standards, you can, there's this primer document, and that kind of explains, purpose and key principles, um, namespace. Here's where it outlines the things that are not in our namespace. We used a few things from OWL. Well, this actually has to do with the ontology itself and not, here we go. RDF type, SCOS, pref label, alt label. Um, so that's, I would say if it sounds like you've got some experience in Wikidata. It's different than in Wikidata where there are like many, many properties. It is Meridian's limited to the WorldCat ontology properties. And if this group has recommendations for a property they think is missing, that's another thing that folks can provide as feedback to us, and that can go to the team that does all the editing on the ontology. And then, oh, which kind of answers the next question. Susan, I see a question in there. I'll just answer. Since you have data source from NAR, the number of entities in Meridian may be bigger. And Meridian use, yes, correct. So, um, but there's a big overlap. So LC name authority records and VOF, in theory, it should be quite a one-to-one match. And then there's additional from WorldCat entities. So WorldCat entities is sort of like the superset of all of these. All right, and then Susan mentioned there's a place in the edit box to put a reference URL. Where do those show up in the entity representation? So the reference URLs show up in this references section. Um, this has to do primarily with the representation of this in RDF. There's not a great way to add provenance in the RDF formats. Um, but, oh, I don't have an example of it. There is a way when you have like the the full read endpoint, does have a section that then kind of links the references to the properties or essentially provides this table in a machine readable format. The expand entry, now that I'm logged in, this goes to the WorldCat ontology description, which we've also gotten some feedback on, like, could this go to the human readable ontology section instead of the machine readable? Great questions. Anything else that would be helpful to folks? So what I will send out is recording, a link to the help page, a link to the form. So if this is something you'd like to, continue working with us on, I'll send a link to that Google form that I was showing, this one here. And again, it's very comprehensive, so don't feel that you have to sit down and do all of it. Do a few properties if you want, take a break, come back. It should save them, or if your computer, clears its cache or whatever and it doesn't save, just start with the next one. It's fine. We can collapse the different results. And Meridian users have equal rights with regard to data creation and update. There's no institutional authorization, correct? So Meridian user A and Meridian user B can do the same things. Um, so they could make a change to an entity that, like, let's say, I don't know, if I created the Ann Washington entity and then somebody came by and knew, oh, she also worked at University of Virginia because I have this article from when she worked at University of Virginia. I don't have to add that. That that institution can add it, and that'll be represented in the history as well for whoever made that change. All right. Well, I mean, I think you all already have my email. As I mentioned before, folks that are part of EMCO, there is this EMCO partner program where, and this is my OCLC hat now, um, where there is a discount available on Meridian for the, duration of this, what is early adopters program. So if you have questions about that, feel free, and then take that hat off. When it comes to EMCO stuff, or Meridian questions or WorldCat entities questions, also feel free to email me. I like hearing from folks. Um, all right. Well, I think that about does it. Thank you, everybody, for joining, for your questions, and I hope to see you at our future EMCO meetings.